What's up, my beautiful family? It's High Energy Tuesday. Let's go. You think about all of the identity issues that people have as adults, or the confidence issues or the self-esteem issues. A lot of that is rooted in not having a relationship with a biological parent in some sense. And I experienced that myself. And so looking at those numbers, it really threw me for a loop. And I had my father who was in my life since I was 1 year old. And I also had a biological father who I didn't have a relationship with, a genuine relationship with. And I went through my many challenges throughout life. Like I went through trauma, unbelievable trauma when I was 7 years old. And in Black families, we didn't talk about the trauma we experienced. We just went through the trauma and then we said, hey, life moves on, and we moved on with life. We didn't seek therapy or counseling. We didn't do those things. We were like, hey, you're all right. Let's move on. Let's focus on sports. Let's focus on academics. Let's focus on the next thing. That's what we did. But I was also experiencing these anger outbursts, and I didn't realize that it was rooted in the trauma I experienced when I was 7. And I actually didn't even deal with the trauma aspect until I was 26 years old. I'll talk more about that at the conference. But I didn't actually heal from it until, I was an adult. But I will say that during this time frame, the good part is that I had an example this time frame. I had a person in my life who I loved and who loved me unconditionally, who I can look to as an example, as a mentor, and say, Cody, that's who I'm supposed to be. I depended upon my father for an example of who I was supposed to be as I went through my own challenges. And when I was 16 years old, those challenges, they kind of erupted. My anger was just too much. It got to a point where my mother said, hey, we can't do that here anymore. And for my 16th birthday, she gave me $90 for a bus ticket to go experience who my biological father was for myself. And so I took a suitcase and I took that 13-hour bus ride to Michigan. And it was just a radical change for me in life. And my biological father, there were some fun times, but there were also some tough times. Some of those tough times were, me walking home because he was working 12 hours at the Ford plant. But there were good times like riding the four-wheelers. But I remember the first time I experienced homelessness was when I was there. My anger I just got tired of living in the situation that I was living in. I was just tired of it. And I remember them saying like, hey, if you don't like it, then you can go live somewhere else. And, there was nowhere else for me to go except for the street. And so that first night I laid in a ditch because it was just unbearably cold outside. And I was just trying to just get some shelter because the wind was just cutting right through my clothing. And when that wasn't enough, I went and I knocked on a friend's door down the street. I said, hey, can I stay here? They said, hey, sorry, man. My mom said you can't stay here tonight. And so I called my cousin on the phone. And this is when we had the minute phones. We had to load the minutes on. I used one of my minutes and I called them and asked if I could stay there. It's like, hey, sorry, you can't stay here tonight. Sorry, man. And so I went and I knocked on another friend's door. And they allowed me in. And they gave me some blankets and said, hey, you can sleep in the den. And they had 6 to 7 dogs. And because it was so cold outside, you couldn't keep animals out there in that kind of cold. So you had to bring them inside during the wintertime. And so they all slept inside the den. And so I laid there on the floor with them that night, just getting bit up by fleas. And I just remember having a moment and realizing, I was like, what in the world is going on with me in my life? I went from being a star athlete to having, my mom and dad in my life to this. And the struggle didn't end there. The struggle continued over time that year. And so I eventually went back to North Carolina. But I remember having a moment and just realizing that you shouldn't chase in the shadow of someone who wasn't supposed to be in your life during certain moments in life. A lot of times as we're going through our own trauma, or we're going through the different things that we experience in life, we're looking to associate ourselves with other people because we don't know who we're supposed to be. We don't know what we're supposed to do in life. And so we're looking to try to find like, okay, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? And a lot of times in life, there are people who are not meant to be that example for us. And I had to learn that at 16 years old. And as I moved on through life, like there were different things that were happening. I still had all these anger outbursts. And I stopped playing sports while I was up there because I wasn't in school very much. I remember one time my cousin was getting threatened by a bunch of other guys in the school, and he brought a pellet gun to school in order to protect himself. And someone told on him, and the deputies kicked in the classroom door and they threw him down, on the floor. They took the pellet gun from him and threw him against the wall lockers, and he went to juvie that night. Like he went, and he's been in and out of jail since then. And that same day, I remember being angry because I felt like I didn't have the adults in my life at this point, so all I had was my cousin. And so when he went to jail, I was angry and I wanted to find who told on him because they had just taken everything from me at that point. And I found this kid who I thought, told on my cousin. I was like, hey, he's trying to protect himself. And I put this kid in the hospital. And of course they put the handcuffs on me, but this kid wouldn't press charges on me. He just wouldn't. And we had similar backgrounds, but I was thankful for another opportunity, because who knows where my life would have gone, if, that situation was a little bit more different than that. So you're probably asking, like, where is this leading? Where is this going? I got to a point where, like that situation I described before, where I got into that fight and put that kid in the hospital, like that was another turning point for me, because I was able to see where my anger was taking me. I could see the path of destruction that I was on. And to do that to somebody who looked just like me, it was like looking into a mirror. And it's like, what are you doing to yourself? And for that person and his family to recognize that I still had value, even though I did a heinous thing, I had to make a change. And as we move through life, like to us, there are cues that happen internally where we know that we're steering off the path of who we're supposed to be. We're steering off the path of who our character is supposed to form into. And we know things are out of our normal character battle rhythm. And you have to take responsibility for that. Because what I found along the way was that my self-confidence, my self-esteem, my self-identity, it didn't rest with anybody else. It rested with me and with inside of me. And I had to become desperate to get back onto the path. So even though I didn't know exactly what to do or how to do it, I knew that I was supposed to be going in a different direction. And thankfully, I had an example of what that direction should be. And so I used that example as a way to get back on the right path. But I knew inside that something was off, that I wasn't doing the right thing. And so if you're ever in that place and you know that something's out of character for you, that it's not a normal pattern for you to act a certain way, that your behaviors are just a little bit off, become desperate to find those answers. Don't just look by it. Don't just look by trauma. Don't just look by incidents and say, I'm just going to quickly move by it. Don't do that. Look at it. Ask the hard questions and become desperate to find those answers. Become desperate to get back on the path. Become desperate to get to that door of success. Become desperate to get to greatness, because so many others are tied to that or connected to that. And they're looking on you so they can see the path that they need in order to get back on their own path. And back on the path. Get back focused. Because You're meant to do so many more things that you've already done. Even if you're at a place where you're like, hey, I've accomplished all of these things. There's more. If you have breath in your body, there's more. And I know that you have dreams. I know you have things that you've always wanted to accomplish, that you wanted to do in life. Well, now's the time. But if you want to become truly unlocked, if you want to become truly unhinged, if you want to become truly connected with who you're supposed to be, then you've got to look at the things that you've went through. You've got to ask the hard questions, and you got to find the answers to that. And there's no shortage of help to do it. Through therapists, through coaches, there's no shortage of that. As a child, as a teen, I didn't know those were options. I didn't know there were other ways of dealing with my emotions. I was just sitting in it and just growing in anger. And in the meantime, I'm competing in sports. I'm working my butt off in school, and I'm just trying to figure it out. And I wasn't dealing with the trauma. I wasn't dealing with the things that I had been through, but it was disrupting every other part of my life. Because when it comes to those unhealed areas of our life, well, let me tell you, it's just like a jack in the box where you just crank him over time, and at that unexpected point in time in life, at that unexpected place, just boom, that jack pops out of the box and surprises you and everyone else. You're like, where did that come from? Well, let me tell you, that's what happens when you just bury it. That's what happens when you just put it aside. That's what happens when you don't deal with it. And then you're in a place of making bad decisions because you're confused about why you're acting in certain ways. So don't look by it. Don't look over it. Because there's so much more greatness that is awaiting. There is legacy that is awaiting. So let's continue to move forward. And be an anchor for somebody else. Be a mentor. There are too many children in the world. There's millions of children in the world that are out here that don't have an example, that don't have a father in the home, or don't have a male example they can pull from. Become a mentor. Take it upon yourself to be responsible for those that you've got a relationship with and show up in their life. It's High Energy Tuesday, y'all. Let's go.